In this program, I'm going to be talking about 10 principles. These are principles that I have thought a great deal about. I've given many graduation speeches. I have 8 children. I've spoken to them about various things that I think of as my wisdom being passed on to them. But that's not what these principles are about. These 10 powerful principles are the principles that I believe that each and every one of us can put into practice to create for ourselves the kind of life that we'd really like to live. Most of us want to have a sense of peace in our lives. Most of us would like to be able to feel that they're on purpose in their life. But so often we get tied down with trying to fit in, trying to do things the way other people tell us that we're supposed to do them, trying to be a good person, trying to be successful in a material sense. I think the most important thing any one of us can have is a sense of inner peace, a sense of I am a successful human being and I am living the life that I was destined to live, that I showed up here as a person who's a divine creation with a heroic mission. These principles to me represent the most important and significant things that a human being can gather into their lives. And they're very practical. They're things that we can use and work on each and every day of our lives. These principles have guided my life since I was a young boy, living in foster homes and earning my own way through everything in my life. These principles work, but they only work if you decide you're going to make them work for yourself. They're not about being what other people think you should be. They're about living the life that you are destined to live, about fulfilling your own sense of purpose as a human being. They're principles for inner peace, they're principles for success, but they have nothing to do with the material world. They have to do with looking within and connecting yourself to that great source that keeps all of us living and breathing in a fully functioning way.
Dr. Wayne Dyer is a best-selling author, lecturer, and modern philosopher. He holds a doctorate in counseling psychology and is America's leading teacher of transformational wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very kindly. We are here in a very special place. We are in the very church where, on the very setting, where Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson's grandfather, was the minister here when the American Revolution began, and the shot heard round the world was fired just a little ways within walking distance of where we're standing. And it is a very special time for me because in my writing place, which is a very private place, I don't write with a computer. I don't write with a typewriter. I put my left hand on the table and I take my right hand with a ballpoint pen and I have a pad of legal-size paper and I allow whatever comes through to come through my heart and onto the page. And in that writing space, I have had a picture of 2 people on my desk. The 2 people that have been on my desk have been Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was called by many America's teacher, a man who just took the ideas that he felt burning in his breast and talked about them regardless of what others around might have felt or thought. He gave an address at the Harvard School of Divinity and wasn't invited back for 33 years because of the things that he said about how he felt man should become self-reliant and how spirituality ought to serve man rather than frighten him. On the other side of my desk is a picture of a man named Henry David Thoreau. And Thoreau was a man who decided even to go to prison rather than pay his taxes to a government who was doing some things that at that time he considered an abomination. And he went off to Walden Pond to live and wrote in his journal, "Simplify, simplify, simplify," to which Emerson reportedly responded, I think one simplify would have sufficed. At any rate, these two giants, along with Bronson Alcott, who was the father of Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women, and so many other powerful books about the rights of a woman to be treated with equality at a time when such things weren't even considered. These were people who took stands on abolition when it was not an easy thing to do. They were stops here along the Underground Railroad to help people, fugitive slaves who were escaping. These people took these kinds of stands and held meetings at the Concord School of Philosophy to discuss an American approach to contributing something that we call now self-reliance, one of Emerson's most famous essays. And I am honored to be here in the same city, on the same site, in a building that has been rebuilt, but where Emerson's grandfather was the minister. So Concord was very accommodating to us to put this program together. And what this program is about is what I call with apologies to David Letterman, my top 10. He does a top 10 every night, and of course they're very amusing. These are my top 10 principles for living a life of success and a life of inner peace. I've been invited many, many times to give graduation addresses, high schools and universities, and I've attended many of them when my own children have graduated, and I've attended at my own graduations at various times in my life. And most of the time, these speeches revolve around certain kinds of themes. One of the themes that they revolve around is success involves working hard and setting goals and listening to your elders and putting aside for the future and all kinds of nose to the grindstone advice about becoming successful later on if you follow these principles. This isn't what this program is about. I have put together what I think are principles that you can live and practice and go to work at each and every day, but these principles don't allow you to become just like everybody else. They're not designed to have you fit in. They're not designed to have you have a life of material success necessarily and defining your success that way, or to feel a sense of inner peace based upon making a connection to something that someone else tells you is what you need to be connected to. These are my principles that I've lived, and it's very difficult for me to tell you to respect your elders and to have other people's opinions be the things that you should use to follow in making your own decisions in life when I've hardly ever done that myself. And I've often said in my talks over the years that any success that I have experienced in my life is really in spite of my education rather than because of it. And it isn't because I am putting down education. I've been an educator all my life and a teacher at all levels, from grade school to junior high school, through high school, professor at several universities, and I have lectured extensively all over the world as a teacher. And I never, ever take this responsibility lightly. But I really believe that inside each and every one of us, we must find our own way of fulfilling and actualizing ourselves as human beings. And no one else out there can direct us or tell us how to do that. It has to be something that comes from within. One of the books that I read when I was very young was handed to me by a man I respected a great deal. And in it was written by Napoleon Hill, and it was called Think and Grow Rich. And it wasn't a book about how to make money and how to get rich. It was really a book that was transformative when I read it at the age of 18, which taught how to have a deeper and a richer experience of life. and that the people who are able to have this deeper and richer experience of life were not necessarily those who did things the way they were told to do things. In fact, what they had that seemed to distinguish them more than anything else from those who didn't achieve a measure of success and inner peace in their lives was something that he called a burning desire. And this burning desire is something that I can identify with very, very strongly. I am just turned 61 years old. And at the age of 61, I can honestly say to you that I have never really in my life experienced something called scarcity. I grew up in a series of foster homes, and my life was not one of having things handed to me. I've had to earn whatever I've had to earn along the way, and I've done everything from drive delivery trucks and work as a cashier. I used to, as a doctoral student, ring out the groceries of my students that I was teaching, and take their bags out and hope that my students would give me a tip. I mean, I've been out there working, all right, all my life. But one thing that I've known and I've experienced and I remember from looking at the lives of people who have been able to establish themselves as successful, if you will, is that they have this thing called a burning desire. And a burning desire is not like any other desire. I mean, all of us have desires. I mean, if you want to eat your dinner, you have to have a desire to go get the food, or move from one room to another, or put the food onto a plate and heat it up, or whatever. Desire just comes with being human, living in a human body. A burning desire is something very different. A burning desire is like having an inner candle flame that never flickers. Though the worst goes before you, this thing can't be put out. No one out there can ever tell you, you can't do this, or you can't have this. In fact, when other people do tell you can't have it or you can't do it, all it does is, for those who have that burning desire, is reinforce that this is something I am going to be able to accomplish. And I will use your skepticism and I will use the doubt that you provide to motivate me even further. And I've always felt that in my life, that even when I lived in a home where there were a group of children, I was the one that always had a little bit of money jingling in my pockets, because I would sleep with the snow shovel at night when it would snow. And I'd wake myself up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I would take that snow shovel out and I would shovel the snow of all of the houses in the neighborhood without even asking anybody if they'd like it shoveled. And then I'd go back and knock on the door, and I was cute. I was a cute little kid. I had this blonde hair. I know that's hard to imagine. I've sent it all away now. And I would just stand there and say, I shoveled your snow for you. And sometimes I would get a nickel or a dime. I even got a quarter on a couple of occasions. That doesn't sound like much, but that was 1946, 47. That's equivalent to $6,000 in today's money, all right? And I can remember the other kids always saying, Wayne is the one that had money jingling in his pocket. And it wasn't because I had any special abilities that the others didn't have. It was because I had this thing called a burning desire to be able to have within me whatever I needed to be able to purchase the things that I wanted. And that burning desire has been something I've had with me, and it's why I put a program together just like this. Because I believe so strongly in the message of public television. I believe so strongly in the idea that we have a spiritual deficit in this country, and that we don't have an information deficit. There's plenty of that. But there's a deficit of spirit, a deficit that says there's not enough of us that feel connected to the highest and the greatest part of ourselves. And these top 10 principles that I have put together here for this program, you might want to jot down. You might want to go into your desk and just take out a little piece of paper. But I think if you practice them and look at them and see them, they come from someone who's had a burning desire, but has also been living a life in which I have felt independent of the opinions of others in terms of whether or not I should or shouldn't be doing that. There's something that I allow to consult myself, within myself, rather than looking outside to see if this is right or not. And so let me just I'll number them and I'll go through them and I'll give you some examples of them, and you decide whether they're to your liking or whether they work or not. The first of these principles came from a Vedantic scholar in the 10th century. His name was Tilopa. It's not exactly bestseller books, but it's the kind of thing that really excites me, because I think of going back 1,000 years or 2,000 years and reading what some of the greatest minds had to say and how open they were to the potentiality that each and every one of us have for greatness. And this first principle says, as Tilopa put it, have a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing. One of the central principles of my life is that no one knows enough to be a pessimist about anything. And that each and every one of us, when we close our mind to what is possible for us or what is possible for humanity, closes off the genius that resides and lives in each and every one of us. Having an open mind doesn't necessarily mean finding fault with all of the things that you've been taught by others. It means opening yourself up to the potentiality and the possibility that anything and everything is possible. So having a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing really means finding within ourselves the ability to get rid of a trait that I find so common in the contemporary world. Do you know that most people that I meet spend their lives looking for occasions to be offended? They actually are out there hoping that they can find some reason to be offended. And there's no shortage of reasons. They're out there everywhere. The way this person dressed, what this person said, they turn on their TV, they hear the news, they're offended by this. Someone used language that they didn't like, someone doesn't share the same customs that you, and people all day long. In fact, if you keep track tomorrow, you will find probably 100 reasons that you can go around being offended. But a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing is a mind that says, I'm never looking for anything to be offended by. And that whatever anybody else out there has to say, my response to that is, that's an interesting point of view. I've never considered that before. I remember being interviewed for a morning television show, and the woman that was interviewing me said, how does it feel to be talking to audiences where people have all of these strange beliefs, these weird things that they come to? And it intrigues me, because one of the things that Emerson said is, in one of his very first essays, he says the first thing we have to say respecting what are called new views here in New England, where we are right now, is that they are not new, but the very oldest of thoughts cast into the mold of these new times. And that was in 1842. He was speaking about that. And this woman asked me the question. She said, doesn't it offend you that there's people out there and they're talking about people using crystals to heal somebody? And I remember my response. My response was that if I've got hemorrhoids and somebody out there is convincing me that crystals are going to heal them, I'm ordering crystal chairs. Why not? I mean, all you have to do is understand something called a placebo. And what is a placebo? It's nothing more than a convincing belief. If I hand you this pill and say this pill is going to cure your arthritis, and you take it and the pill is just a sugar pill, but your arthritis disappears, I'm into buying those placebos. Where can I get some of those placebos? And it's true of everything. And it's when you think about all the things that we enjoy and what our life is like, it took people who had a mind that wasn't closed to allow us to make the progress that we've made. Progress is impossible if you always do things the way you've always done things. But the other word in this, what Talopa said, is be attached nowhere. Be attached nowhere. Attachment really means I am deluding myself into a belief that if I can't have or if I can't do this or that thing, then somehow I am going to become immobilized. So an open mind that is detached. In my most recent book, in A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, I have an observation. And it's an observation from Anthony DeMello, a man I respect enormously, a priest, who, in The Way to Love, puts it this way. Here's a great test for your relationships, especially the relationships that you're in with those whom you love, not your children, but your spouses and your lovers and so on. Try this test on for size. 1, I am not really attached to you at all. I am merely deluding myself into the belief that without you, I will not be happy. And 2, and here's the toughest test for non-attachment, I leave you free to be yourself, to think your thoughts, indulge your tastes, follow your inclinations, behave in ways that you decide are to your liking. How's that for a challenge? And so what most of us do in our relationships and why they are not as successful as we would like them to be is that we become attached and we tell ourselves that if this person behaves in a way that I find offensive, then I can't be happy. I make my happiness, my fulfillment dependent upon those people that I love being what I think that they should be. And detachment doesn't mean being a victim. It just simply means I know that I can make my life fulfilled and happy by having a mind that is open to everything and attached nowhere. The second principle is a very simple principle. It says you can't give away what you don't have. Now, it sounds ridiculous, okay? But it's more than what meets the ear as you hear this. You can't give away what you don't have. People who are not good at giving away love can't give away love because they don't have it to give away. If I want to give you a dozen oranges, I can't give you those dozen oranges unless I go out and pick up 12 oranges someplace. Otherwise, all it is just empty rhetoric. And the same thing is true of virtually everything in your life. You can't give away love for others if you don't have love in here to give away. If what you have in here is contempt, if what you have in here is anger, if what you have in here is fear, then these are the things you're going to be giving away in your life. And I've often thought, and I really believe very strongly that there's a law in the universe. I call it the law of attraction. And the law of attraction is one that works like this. You get back from the universe, from the world, what it is that you put out there in the world. And if you're putting out there into the world that I am not worthy of attracting something beautiful into my life, that the universe will respond back to you with exactly that message. And there are people who come to me and who came to me for years when I had my own counseling practice and so on, and they would say to me, I just keep attracting the same kind of people, the same kind of events, the same kind of losers into my life. Why is that? Why do I keep doing that? And I keep attracting an absence of abundance. I just can't seem to attract abundance into my life. I'm always behind the 8 ball. I'm never getting ahead. And I suggested to them, I said, did it ever occur to you that that's the very kind of message you're sending out to the world and out to the universe? That the ocean of abundance is there. And you can go to that ocean of abundance and you can take a Mack truck and you can fill it up 20 times a day and take it out of there, and guess what? It doesn't impact at all the ocean of abundance. It doesn't even go down a zillionth of an inch. It's unlimited. Or you can go to the same ocean of abundance with a eyedropper, and you can just take this much out once a month and say, that's all that seems to be available for me. And the interesting thing for me is that when people go to this ocean of abundance, this unlimited world, all that I have is thine, it says in the holy books. All that I have is thine. It's all there for you. But if you believe inside that it's limited, that you can only get so much, that other people are going to get it before you do, then you'll find yourself creating that very same thing. And the even more interesting part about this, you can't give away what you don't have principle, is that if your message to the universe is gimme, 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 which is a lot of people's message to the universe. I want this from you, I want that from you, please give me this, I have to have that. That's what their prayer is like, that's what their message is, and they say, I want this from the universe, gimme, gimme, gimme. The universe's response back to that kind of a mentality is exactly the same. The universe will say right back to you over and over again, gimme, gimme, gimme. And you'll find yourself never, ever arriving, but always being in a state of striving, always feeling as if you're being neglected, never feeling as if you have enough, always feeling as if you're being shortchanged, because you're constantly under the pressure to give, to get back what the universe is demanding from you. And the interesting thing about all of this, the irony of this, is that if you shift that and you say to the universe, to the world, how may I serve? How may I serve? The universe's response back to you is, how may I serve you? How may I serve you? And it's very intriguing. When you take your energy and your attention off of what you are demanding from the world, and instead saying, what can I give to the world? And it's really the basis behind that very famous line of the President John Kennedy's inaugural address. Ask not what your country can do. Ask what you can do for your country. And the irony of that is, and I've learned that in my own life, that when I stopped thinking about what was in it for Wayne Dyer and how much could I get, and I began to shift and say, how can I help you? How can I give to you? What can I do for you? And people who write to me, I send them something. When I encounter somebody that needs help of some kind, I'm very often just giving that to them. And then I find that it just keeps coming back into my life. And once I shifted that energy off of what can I have into what can I give, it seemed to me that the universe responded back with the very same message. What can I give to you? And the most incredible and wonderful and beautiful abundance has flowed into my life in every way that I can possibly think of. You can't give away what you don't have. So take a look at an inventory of what you do have. How much do you love yourself? How much kindness do you have in you? How much peace do you have in you? How much joy do you have in you? And if you're able to give that away as many times as you can in a given day, watch and see how much more of that continues to show up and come back in your life. Okay? The third principle is one of my very favorites. It's called, there are no justified resentments. And this is a very difficult principle for many people to get, but one that I believe very strongly in. I was in a group one time of drug addicts and alcoholics. And I was one of the people that was a sponsor and leading this group. And the sign on the wall said, there are no justified resentments in this group. And what I said to that group that night was
that if you are not grateful for that which shows up in your life, you will block its entrance into your life. And if you're not generous with what does show up in your life, you will also block it. And so the ways to create this attitude of gratitude and this attitude of generosity are to begin a practice, a daily practice, of being grateful for all that shows up for yourself. That's the first thing. Just keep in mind how lucky you are to have anything that you might have. So the first thing that you do is develop an awareness of yourself as a recipient rather than a victim. You are a receiver, and you are in the act of having more show up in your life, and you are claiming that for yourself, not because you're selfish, but because you are entitled to the abundance of the universe, since you are the universe. And then secondly, I would practice the silent expression of gratitude whenever you start to see your desires manifesting from the universal source. Just tiny little indications inwardly that you are grateful. Thank you for allowing this to show up. Whenever a little coin shows up, just picking it up and putting it in your pocket and saying thank you. It's a symbol of all of the abundance that has shown up in my life. Then I would recommend that you daily become a person who's willing to tell those around you how much you appreciate them. Just simple little things like holding your spouse, not for just a little kiss, good morning or good night, but just maybe an extra 15 seconds of a squeeze and just, gee, it's really nice to have you in my life. I'm really grateful that you and I are married. I'm grateful that you're my lover. Or to your children, you know, I really am fortunate and blessed to be your father, or to have you in my life. Or even the sales lady, or even the waitress, or even the flight attendant. Thank you. I really appreciate your consideration in bringing me the fork I asked for, or putting the glass of water in front of me. Whatever, just little indicators of your appreciation. And then I'd be very thankful and avoid complaining as much as possible. Don't complain, don't explain. A good rule to keep uppermost in your mind. One of the things I do each day is I begin the day with an expression of gratitude and thanksgiving. Just a simple little statement. There are some people who get up every morning and say, "Good God, morning." And there are others who get up and say, "Good morning, God." I'm one of the people who's in the latter group. I say, "Good morning, God," not "Good God, morning." And I'm grateful every morning that I wake up, that I got another 24 hours, that I got through the night, that I had a good night's sleep, that I have a bed to sleep in, that I have a family, that I have my health, that I have whatever it is. And I'm thankful for that. And expressing it just not in a phony way, even if it's done privately, it gives you that attitude of gratitude that allows the flow of energy to come into your life. Also, it's important to be grateful for all that you don't have, and for the struggles, and for the opportunity to transcend some of the things that you have perceived to be limitations, to transcend some of your addictions and some of your behaviors that aren't as harmonious and loving as you'd like them to be. Without those, you couldn't get to a higher place. And keep in mind always, as you're working on this attitude of gratitude, that the nature of thought is to increase, because the nature of everything in the universe is to increase, and the universe is made up of this energy, the same energy that allows you to think. So if the universe is expanding, and it's made up of what's in you, then your thoughts are also expanding. And if your thoughts are on things like, I don't feel very good, or I'm not happy, or negativity in any way, then that will be the thing that continues to expand. On the other hand, if your thoughts are on how grateful you are, then that will continue to expand. And of course, as you become more grateful, you are feeling more connected rather than separated from that which is your source. It's also important to practice generosity in your life as a part of this principle. And that one of the things to do is to recognize that this is a way of being that definitely can be developed. You can, in fact, practice being generous. And generosity is a way of showing that you have trust in this divine intelligence. And stinginess and hoarding are a way of you saying, I don't think there's enough, I better hang on to it. And it's a disbelief in the abundance of the universe and more of a recognition of scarcity. And when you have a scarcity consciousness, it is scarcity that shows up in your life. And when you have an abundance consciousness, it is abundance which shows up in your life. Think of the things that other people do for you every day. Think of the things that you couldn't do without the help of other people, and become aware of the internal resistances that arise within you when you have an impulse to give. Remember that you're one human being connecting to another in a spirit of love and kindness and generosity. And this idea that, oh, I better not tip too much, or I better be very careful about how much I give because then they'll expect more. The more of this that you give away, the more that shows up in your life that you allow to flow through you, the more you encourage that which you would like to have manifested to show up for you in your life. It's one of the laws of the universe. It's simply stated as what goes around comes around. And as if you allow it to come around, it will continue to go around. If you stop it with your stinginess and your hoarding, then you stop the flow. And also it's important to practice being able to receive, just like it is to be able to give. Just listen to this. One breath in, I receive. I can't keep that breath. I have to give it back. Every breath you take is a giving and a receiving. It's the same way with the food that you eat. It's the same way with everything that we have in our life. We have a food chain that is natural to the survival of everything on the planet. There is a giving and there is a giving back. And all that we give back, we give it back in the form of fertilizers. We give it back in the form of our own bodies, which ultimately becomes tomorrow's food. Everything on the planet in this moment, as Ken Wilber says, is tomorrow's food. Giving and receiving. And the fact is, if you don't know how to receive, if it's difficult for you to accept from others, then you are blocking it just as much as your unwillingness to give. Giving, receiving. Receiving, giving. It's the way of the universe.
When you learn to trust in yourself, what you're really doing is trusting in the very wisdom that created you. And this key word here is trust. The use of the word trust could be used synonymously with faith. This faith to move mountains, this faith to be able to create things for yourself without having that little smidgen of doubt in there. Remember, as it says in Proverbs in the Old Testament, as you think, so shall you be. Your thoughts, of course, create your reality. And the application of this is that if you're doubting, if you're thinking about even the littlest amount of doubt, then that will be what you will work on. You will act upon that inner world of doubt, and you will manifest the result of doubt. And if you doubt something, then obviously, as Shakespeare said, our doubts are our traitors. William Blake had a wonderful line. He said, if the sun and moon should ever doubt, they would immediately go out. So it's almost like you have to have the faith of the sun and the moon, that you are a divine being that has this divine intelligence within it. And as I talk about trust, it's appropriate to look at the characteristics of this thing that has many names. The God force, the spirit, the invisible intelligence, the soul, the consciousness, the awareness. Whatever name or label that we place on it, it has certain characteristics. And this is a very tough area for us to master, because our egos, the part of us that are rooted in the physical domain, really strongly believe in our separateness from each other and from God. And because we are so attached to our separateness, it is very hard for us to now begin to trust in a unity kind of consciousness. A consciousness which says that I am much more than that which I observe. I am much more than my troubles. I am much more than that which I notice. As the noticer, I have this divine capacity. So what I'm talking about here is an intelligence or a God force or a divine awareness, whatever you want to call it, that is in all things. It's in that tomato seed, it's in the banana seed, it's in you, it's in everything. Everything starts with an idea, and this idea is not in the physical domain. To come to trust in this really means that you have to transcend the ego part of you and say, I have got to learn as an individual, as a particularized part of this divine intelligence, I have to learn about and adopt an intelligence that doesn't know how to particularize. I have to adopt and be a part of an intelligence that is everywhere. That's what universal means. Universal intelligence means there is no place that it is not. Okay? Now, if there's no place that it is not, it means that it is in me. And if it is in me and there's no place that it is not, it is also in everything that I process or perceive to be missing from my life. It's also in that.
So if I would like to be able to manifest abundance of some kind, or a relationship, or a healing, or a seller for my home, or a promotion, or whatever it is, the intelligence that I am talking about, this universal, divine, organizing intelligence, that is the highest part of, that represents the highest part of you, is in the very thing that is missing. So here's a key line to learn about learning to trust. When you learn to manifest, you are doing nothing more than manifesting another aspect of yourself. You're manifesting another aspect of yourself. And when you get to this place where you're beginning to trust in this wisdom that created you, you're beginning to understand what this force is like and how different it is from the ego, which is the part of us that has separated ourselves from that force and has believed in our own sense of particularization or individualization. Remember, to develop the kind of trust that I'm talking about, you have to be able to process this intellectual fact that there is an intelligence in the universe that doesn't know how to particularize. It doesn't know how to individualize. It has no preferences. It is everywhere at the same time. It has no judgment. It is like electricity. It's just there. It's everywhere and in everything. And being in everything, it's in you and everything that you would like to manifest. So what you're doing as you manifest is just getting another part of yourself to align. When you learn to manifest, what you're doing is you are aligning your intention with divine intelligence. You are aligning your intention with divine intelligence. You are not creating. You are not bringing something from another world into this world. We don't do that. Everything that's in the world is in the world. We just combine things and we move things around that are already here. It's all here. The creative process is really nothing more than shifting around what is here already and aligning ourselves with it and redistributing it. It is always flowing. It never changes. And most important, it never dies. It never dies. When Lao Tzu, the writer of the Tao, 5 centuries before Christ, was asked the question, "What is real, Master? What is real?" His response was, "That is real, which never changes." Somehow, you have to figure out a way to know the part of you that never changes.
There is no there. It's all just being. So there is no being here, because here implies the existence of there. As Anita writes, quote, "When we pursue externally, we seem to see the world as being competitive and limited, and we use external measures to judge our achievements. To me, herein lies the illusion. There is no limited supply of beingness. We seem to measure our beingness by the achievement of goals. I don't, and neither do most people who are happy. My point is to shift your views. See the magnificence in your being, whether you are rich or poor, physically impaired or not, with the one you love or not, and so on. I am now just focused on being, and am now the creator of my life. That is, the artist of my life." Anita concludes, quote, "The only thing you need to learn is that you already are what you are seeking to attain." I am inviting you to live this way, first in your imagination, be it. Then live your life in the way St. Paul suggests, treating those things which do not exist as though they did, and surely they will become your reality. Your reconstructed I ams. Run through as large an inventory as you can of the things that you would like to define your life. Then make the shift in your imagination from an I am not or I am hoping to become to I am. You want what follows I am to be congruent with your highest self, which is God. Beginning with your inner dialogue, simply change the words that define your concept of yourself. Don't discuss what you're doing, because involving others in your I ams invites their ego to assert its self-importance. Redefine your self-concept by choosing the words that you opt to place into your imagination. Try this rewording of your inner world as a beginning step to accessing the assistance of your higher self and fulfilling your desires. In the book of Joel in the scriptures, the Lord's advice is in harmony with what I'm saying here in this chapter. Quote, "Let the weak say, I am strong." Joel 3:10. It is truly as simple as these 7 words from the Bible advise. If you say, I am weak, you defile the name of God that is your highest self. How is it possible for the creative source of the universe, the source energy responsible for creating worlds, to say, I am weak? As I've quoted previously, Jesus said, "Is it not written in your law, I said, you are God's?" So how can you, as you now operate in your life from your highest self, ever even think such a thought as I am weak, let alone define yourself in such a blasphemous manner? By thinking I am strong, you place in your imagination the tools you need to achieve your pronouncements, and you align with the source of all, with strength instead of weakness. Align yourself so as to synchronistically invite the guidance that is unavailable when you declare, I am weak. Instead of I am incapable of getting a job, shift to I am capable. Similarly, replace proclamations of I am not able to live in peace with I am peace. I am unlucky in love is replaced by I am love. I am unworthy of happiness becomes I am happiness. The words I am, which you consistently use to define who you are and what you are capable of, are holy expressions for the name of God, the highest aspect of yourself. Break lifelong habits of unwittingly besmirching this holy name. Discontinue using pejorative labels to cast aspersions on your holy self. One of the many great lessons of the I Am discourses is to always make your very first consideration to your divine self. In fact, adoration to it will allow you to rise to previously unimagined heights. You must make your outer self accept the unlimited power of your inner presence. Expanding your inner presence. It is impossible for me to overstate the significance of using these 2 words, I am. They have transformative energy to guide and direct the highest power in the universe, revealing you as a God-realized being. It matters not how long you've been stuck in a pattern that's kept you from fulfilling your highest ideal of yourself. By shifting so that you restate who you are in your imagination and choosing to live from this perspective, you will, as Neville suggests, achieve that transformation. This is true whether you've been a drug addict, a chronic stutterer, enmeshed in poverty, riddled with illness, chronically lazy, unlucky in love, intellectually inferior, or whatever you've wished you weren't. Here are a few examples. With addictions, affirm, I am sober, I am perfectly healthy. With stuttering, affirm, I am in perfect command of my speech. With poverty, affirm, I am prosperous. With illness, affirm, I am well, I am perfect health. With laziness, affirm, I am in possession of unlimited energy. With love, affirm, I am love, and I am in a loving relationship. Intellectually weak, affirm, I am a genius. You might be thinking that this is all just self-delusion, and just saying I am doesn't make it so. It's probably natural to feel skeptical if you believe that what your senses tell you is your only reality. The scriptures offer some words that may help you overcome your cynical viewpoint. The opening words in the book of John in the New Testament are, quote, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. 13 verses later, there's this phrase, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. John 1:14. What do you suppose the phrase, and the Word was God, means? You are more than your sensory awareness. You are also your own spiritual divinity, which is impervious to those 5 senses. God proclaims in the same scriptures, as I noted in the previous chapter, my name is I am. Those 2 words are now in your imagination in such a way that they align perfectly with God. This is your beginning. Steadfastly retain and repeat I am, And then you will discover the reality of, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Yes, the words I am, calling upon this name and placing it in your imagination and living from this place literally joins you with the source of power that allows you to become all that you've affirmed, as well as to create miracles. Begin by being willing to use these divine words as the name of your highest self, God. That is the inauguration of the you that will live a wishes-fulfilled life, as long as those wishes are in alignment with the source of being, which is love. Love for yourself and your magnificence. Love for all of God's creations. It's important to understand that each and every one of us represents God or Spirit, revealing itself here and now on our planet. So in what direction are you moving? Being in spirit is a direction we take rather than a destination to be reached. Living our life in spirit requires us to determine that direction, and we do so by noticing our thoughts and our behaviors. Thoughts that are in spirit reflect a vibrational alignment, moving us toward our ultimate calling. And obviously, this is the direction we want to take. Once we begin to observe our thoughts, we realize that there are many times we're going in the opposite direction. When we catch ourselves with conscious effort, we can make a U-turn with new thoughts. For example, blaming something we call evil is thinking in the wrong direction. When we see things in our world that we label evil, what we're really seeing are people moving away from their source, not individuals in the grip of an evil power. To become inspired on a daily basis, we must be able to quickly identify any thoughts that are moving us away from our source and then shift the direction. We need to bring love to the presence of hatred, as St. Francis advised. When we're consumed with thoughts we've labeled as evil, we need to notice that we're headed in the wrong direction. It's difficult to comprehend because we're accustomed to blaming our problems on external forces, such as evil or hatred, but we know better. We can make that U-turn by using the same energy within us that has us traveling away from God. Evil, hatred, fear, and even illness soften with love and kindness when we're in spirit. When we make that U-turn, we make an alignment correction and move back into the space of spirit in our thoughts and actions. A Course in Miracles quotes Jesus as saying, "If you want to be like me, I will help you, knowing that we are alike. If you want to be different, I will wait until you change your mind." Being inspired is truly being like your source. If you're not, then your source is politely waiting for you to do something as simple as change your mind. All bodies emerge from the soul and return to it. The visible emerges from the invisible, is controlled by it, and returns to it. That's a quotation from Lau Russell. This is clearly a purposeful universe with an intelligence supporting its creation and continuing evolution. And we're pieces of that intelligence by virtue of having emerged from it. Consider, for example, that scientific analysis of even a droplet of blood reveals all of the characteristics in our entire body's supply. The percentage of iron in that droplet is proportionately the same as in that which flows through our entire body. So it's easy to agree that the drop of blood is identical to the source from which it was removed. Now think about what happens to that droplet of blood when it remains in the state of separation. It can't fortify or heal us, and it can't circulate freely. Disconnected from its source long enough, it will simply dry up, decay, and disintegrate, even though it contains all of the physical properties necessary to survive that its original source does. I believe that our transition from spiritual source to physical beings made up of particles is similar to that bit of blood in that we contain all of the same properties as our source. But unlike that droplet, we're never completely separated from our source. I know that there are no accidents in a universe directed by a source energy that creates endless real magic in the form of its creations. I know that we agreed to move from the world of spirit into the world of particles and form, to come forth at the exact time that we did, and to leave when we've agreed to do so. I also know that we decided to bring joyful perfection to this world and to share that godlike energy with everyone we encounter here on earth. what I suggest is that you know that every step along the way that you're making, along the path, all the obstacles, all the things that you're going through at this moment, that what you do is you start to process them a little bit differently. And process them not in terms of why do I have to do this and why isn't my life working out or why are things so negative and so on, but process it a little differently in that, why am I choosing this? Why am I participating in this now? What do I have to get out of this? What is the lesson in it for me? And as you do that, you find yourself moving more and more towards the gate. And then when you come up to the gate, you just sort of slam it shut behind you and you never look back again. And that's when you know that you're not alone. That's when you know that for whatever help that you are looking for or whatever guidance you're seeking or whatever road you want to travel, that there's another world other than the world of the five senses. And whatever it is that you will need to be able to accomplish what it is that you're here for, what your purpose is, what you're about, is going to be instantaneously and readily and easily available to you the minute that you allow yourself to go through that gate.
Well, I think there are levels of consciousness. There's what I call ordinary human consciousness or ordinary human awareness. And there's something that in the East is called Siddhi consciousness or Christ consciousness in the West. Ordinary human consciousness is a consciousness in which I identify who I am on the basis of what I'm doing, what I accomplish, how much I collect, who I'm better than, and so on. A key word there is separation. That is, there's you and there's me, and where you stop and where I start is what divides us, what separates us. Then there's another kind of consciousness, which is one in which says, like the Native Americans used to say, no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. There's an awareness that there's a oneness, that we are all connected, that on a round planet there's no choosing up sides, that all of us are connected in some way that's perhaps invisible, that we can't see with our eyes or our senses, but we can feel with our hearts. And when your truth, I don't mean your truth about what you write down, but I mean your truth about what you live, is something that goes beyond your own personality and your own physicalness, you reach this level of Siddhi consciousness. And it is here where in the New Testament it says through St. John, quoting Jesus, that even the least among you can do all that I have done, and even greater things.
But how can a person truly practice consciousness of spirit, if that's what you mean?
Yeah, consciousness of spirit is to treat everyone out there as if they are connected to you rather than as if they're separate from you. Your separation from each other, you begin to eliminate. Your separation from the planet, that you're not on this planet to push it around. That are connected to everything that, if God is that which is everywhere at once, not a person but a presence that is in all things, that means there's no place that God is not. And if there's no place that God is not, then God is in you and also in all that you would like to attract into your life. And so consciousness is really realigning your inner attention with this awareness that you are connected to everything. There was a story of a guru who was just a little child in India, and everyone knew that he was an incarnation of God. I mean, he was living at this, what they call an avatar level. And the people said to him, they were trying to trick him, and one of the people in the tribe said, I'll give you an orange if you can tell me where God is. And he said, I'll give you 2 oranges if you can tell me where God is not. There is no place that God is not. Once you know that, you are connected to God. We were talking off camera before about this great teacher in India in Puttaparthi named Sai Baba, who has this gift of manifestation, materialization, just to move his hands. And it's called the gift of fish and loaves in the New Testament, where you think about feeding people and food just appeared. And he had in 1986, he had his 60th birthday, and 1,100,000 people came from all over the planet to see this holy man who had this great gift of higher awareness and higher consciousness. And one of the reporters from one of the magazines thought that they would trap him. And they asked him the question in front of all these people, who he had granted an audience to, are you God? And Sai Baba looked at him and said, yes, I am. And so are you. He said, the difference between you and I is that I know it, and you don't.
Do you know it about yourself?
Absolutely.
When did you first realize this?
I don't know exactly when it was, but it was at a very low time in my life.
Did it humble you or did it elevate you?
It humbled me and then elevated me. You have to have that fall in order to raise yourself to a high level.
Run the risk, do you think in your mind, of arrogance with anybody watching such an outlandish statement, or do you know in your heart that those who have open ears and open eyes will see that you're coming from what you call your center of truth?
Well, I think one of my teachers was Abraham Maslow. I was blessed to know him in lifetime. And he said in order to reach these higher levels of awareness, you have to be independent of the good opinion of other people. And if that's perceived as arrogance or ignorance, it's okay. I mean, I've been out in public, I've grown up in public over the last 25 or 30 years and been on all the different media shows and written about it and had reported on. And I found I just can't do it on the basis of what other people think. In this last book that I wrote, The Wisdom of the Ages, I profiled 60 people who were great teachers, from Buddha and Jesus and Lao Tzu to Omar Khayyam and Keats and Shelley and Yeats and Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa, 60 of the greatest leaders, philosophers of all time. And one of the things about all of them is that they didn't do what they did on the basis of what other people out there might think. They were living, they were detached from outcome. That's what matters. These people were detached from outcome. That is, they weren't doing what they were doing because it was going to bring them a reward or because people were going to buy books or because they were going to make a lot of money. They're saying, doing what they did because they felt it in their heart.
And Peter Dunant said there are different kinds of love. He said there are basically three. There's human love. And human love is a love that changes, and it's a love that varies. So this is a love that most of us know. It's, I love you, but not as much because it was Valentine's Day and my birthday, and now you forgot to get me this, and you came home late, and you did that, and so it changes, and it varies. I love you a lot today, not so much as yesterday. It's up and down, it changes. I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. You're going. This is what we call human love, the love that we have become accustomed to. All right, and it's a love that I aspire to get past. He said the second kind of love is a love that's called spiritual love, and this is a love that never changes, but it does vary. This is the only way you can describe, the best way to describe this love is that the love you have for your child. I have 8 children, and it doesn't change. It's always there. I've got some that have done very disappointing things. There are some that have done wonderful things, and on, but it just doesn't change. It doesn't matter what they've done. You all know that, all of you who are parents, or even who had parents. So that pretty much includes everyone here. But it does vary. Not so much as yesterday. It's like, you're not following the rules, and you're disobeying this, and you're not dressing whatever it might be. And so it's a love that it varies. It's up and it's down. It's up and it's down, but it never changes. And then there's another kind of love. It's the love I aspire to live. It's a love called divine love. Divine love is a love that never changes. Divine love is a love that never varies. It's all there is. In the unveiled mysteries, the attitude of one who wishes to work in conscious cooperation with the ascended host should not be, I wish I could go to them for instructions, that is, go to the angels or to God or whatever and get instructions. But rather, I will so purify, discipline, and perfect myself, become such an expression of divine love myself, that the work that I do will automatically be drawn unto them. I will love so constantly, so infinitely, so divinely, that the very intensity of my own light will open the way for them to accept me. That is, you have to love the way God loves us. The great poet Hafiz said, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Just think what a love like that can do. It lights up the whole world. This is a different kind of love than human love and spiritual love. This is a love that is what we are. It's a love that you will experience when you leave this body. It's a love that in the Bhagavad Gita they talk about combining the opposites, transcending the dichotomies, bringing oneness. Oneness is a concept that we cannot know as human beings other than when we are in silence, because God's one and only voice is silence. It's only through meditation that you can even approach this, because everything in the physical plane has a duality, has an opposite. If I said to you, what's the opposite of joy? You would say sadness, sorrow, depression, whatever. If I ask you to imagine joy that has no opposite, that's all there is. If I ask you, what's the opposite of love? You might say fear, you might say hate, you might say rage, whatever. But if I ask you, imagine a love that has no opposite, you will know that when you take your last breath. When I read the poem from Hafiz at the end, you will know that. I aspire to it now. It's like, how do you get to a place where there is no opposites? Let's just say you lived on the sun, right smack on the sun, okay? Would you ever have a concept of darkness? Because the opposite of light is what? Dark, right? But on the sun, would you ever have an experience of darkness? Why? Because when you are with the source of all light, there is no opposite. There's only light. When you are with the source of love, which is God, or divine mind, or the Tao. In the Tao, they say, the opening line of the Tao says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. So the minute you name it, you've lost it, because now you have the name and the thing, that's two-ness.
Rumi said, this ancient Persian poet, brilliant, beautiful poet, he said, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. It feels like bewilderment. It feels like awe. It feels like, even as I think about it now, I can feel myself tearing up behind my eyes, because only I know what is going on behind my eyeballs. It feels like so glorious and so sweet and so trusting, so knowing. You know, there's just this powerful knowing that you're not alone. There's this, that it's like there's a safety, there's a sense of that you're not alone. And behind the feeling we're talking about here is this feeling of aloneness for so many people who are lost in the world, that I don't have like a connection to something greater than myself. I've come to believe that who I am is what I do and what I have and what other people think about me, and who I am is separate from everybody else, and who I am is separate even from what I'd like to attract into my life, that I'm separate from all the things that are missing, and I'm separate even from God. And that there's a place within me that knows that I'm not separate from any of that. That if there's no place that God is not, or that source is not, or the energy that provides, that is always giving and always creating is not, if there's no place that it is not, then it has to be in me. I know that. And if there's no place that is not, and it has to be in me, it has to be also in everything that is missing in my life, or that I think is missing. It's there too. So that in some mysterious, invisible way, I'm already connected to everything that's missing in my life through something called spirit. And when I recognized that I'm not here as this human being having a spiritual experience, when you recognize that your essence is that you are a spiritual being, having a human experience, not the other way around. When you really get that, I mean, not that you can say it and it's clever, but when you know that who you are is this essence, you don't see, there's no other, there's no them. There's nothing outside of you. You're connected to everyone and everything. As the Native Americans, you'd say that no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. Your body wasn't made by your parents. We like to think that our bodies were made by our parents. That's because you look a certain way and all of that. But if we take the tiny little drop of protoplasm that created you, and we try to find out its origin, and we take it all the way back to subatomic particles and reduce it, we find out when we put it in a particle accelerator and rev it up at 250,000 miles an hour and collide it, and we open it up, there's nothing there. That you came from the invisible, you came from source. It's the spirit that gives life. So that once you understand that this body of yours is a creation not of human beings, but it's a creation of God. It's a creation of source. It's a creation, it came from nowhere, and an invisible source, and manifested into the world of the physical. And so it only reacts to truth, because it was created by truth. So once you lie, this is an ultimate lie detector test. That's why I always say we could have saved $93 million with President Clinton. It's like, come on. Did you have sex or didn't you? Let's get over this, But now you're using an instrument not of human beings. All of our bodies are divine creations, and they only react to truth with strength. The truth that when you go weak, you're going against your Tao nature. Your true nature is not revenge. Your true nature is not hatred. You came from love, and you have to stay in that state. And once you learn that, once you get that, like having that demonstrated could change your life. Just that moment could change forever. People ask me, what is your biggest confusion about humanity? It's like man's inhumanity to man. This recognition that we are something beyond ego, and we don't, we have a divided world, a world that believes that, if you're male, you're different than if you're female. If you're Muslim, you're different than if you're Christian. If you're born on one side of the river, then you're different than the person who wasn't. And we've taken on all of these ego beliefs, and I think the new generation, this generation, it's their job isn't to end a war. It's to end war. It's to end the concept of war. And the concept of war comes out of this ego identification of who we are, and a belief that I am what I have, and I am what I do, and I am what others think of me, and I am separate from everyone, separate from God, separate from what's missing. This idea of separation and so on. And we will inch by inch move towards a place where people will begin to recognize their connection to each other rather than their separation, or we'll have to just start all over. We'll have to start it over. As Einstein said, if the next war that is fought, he said, after this one will be fought with, with sticks again. We'll have to start all over again. We'll have to start all over. And it's really about slaying this ego, this massive ego thing. You can see it in our foreign policy. You can see it in the way that we treat it. You can see it on television. You can see it in all of the ads that you see for having to take pills for everything. And that's what I feel my work is about. What my life is about now is ending the concept of hatred and separation.
It's about practicing this idea of not putting your thoughts on what is missing and shifting it to it's on its way. It's on its way. It's on its way. 4 words, just get them tattooed someplace inside of you. Whatever it is that you would like to attract into your life, know that it's on its way. And I want to say to you that as you begin to get your thoughts more harmonized with Tao thinking, that is, with the thinking of the source, the thinking of God, that which always has been, that which does nothing but leaves nothing undone, as you begin to more and more harmonize in this way, what happens is that you start elevating your thoughts so that the habit of how you think becomes more harmonized. Rather than a polarity with what you want to attract, it becomes harmonized with it, and it becomes your natural way of how you think all the time. And you start then beginning to teach your children the same way of thinking. So you just catch them when they start saying things like, oh, with my luck it won't work out. Why have any of us ever learned to say, with my luck, and having it mean things aren't going to work out? Why wouldn't you say, and just have it as your habit, with my luck, it'll probably show up faster than it normally does? Why not have that kind of a way? Because here's what happens. as you begin to shift the way that you think and have an anticipation that this thing is going to work out for you, you can only act upon your thoughts. And as you get these higher and higher thoughts, what happens is that the thought is now more aligned with what it is you want to attract, and then you start acting upon that thought. And as you start acting upon the thought that it will work out, that it's probably on its way, you start to see how this whole system all works. In other words, call it the universe, whatever you want, begins to conspire with you. It begins to act almost in where you suddenly become a collaborator with fate. And instead of fate being something that just might or might not happen to you, you're in collaboration with what it is that you want to attract. I mean, ask any physician, there's physicians here today, ask them about something called the will to live. Ask them about somebody who's going in for a corneal transplant and thinks that I'm going to see when this thing is done, rather than someone who thinks it probably won't work out. And which one would they rather work with? What is this thing called the will to live? What is this thing, this inner kind of thing that says, I refuse to allow myself to think? And they've done research on this, in studies on gerontology, where what does your life look like from 60 plus versus what does your life look like below, from 60 down to into your 20s? That people who live a dynamic life into their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, people who feel strong, who don't feel that getting older means that I have to in any way decline any place, physically or mentally. Getting older has nothing to do with the concept of declining. That when people are in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, and this is their perception of what their life is going to be like when they are in their 60s, that those people have a much greater chance of not attracting the kinds of diseases that are so much age-related as do people who think of old as infirm and declining throughout their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. That you change the way you believe about that and you say declining is not a possibility. And we can create the kind of world that we want to create when enough of us begin to say, not part of my consciousness. Nope, I don't buy gossip. No, I don't buy violence. No, I don't have anything to do with that. And you just turn the channel, you turn it off. I pick up a Time magazine when I get on a flight and I go through and I say, I won't read the stories that involve killing. I won't read this. I don't need to hear any more about any more people blowing themselves up. I don't need to continue to have that as a part of my consciousness, because I want to be someone who radiates out God-realized thinking. That's what I want to do. And I can't do that if I'm constantly being imbued with that. So I just go through the pages, page. And usually I say, oh, just threw away another $4.95. There's nothing in it to read. Every once in a while, good story about maybe Tiger Woods or something, but by and large, there's not much in there. And you don't have to fill yourself with that kind of energy.